Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP at 88.9 in Palmer, as well as online at katb.org. My name is Cammie and I'm here with my co-host Betty. And we have got a full house here in the studio today. We are so excited to have these women joining us. Today we have Executive Director with Priceless, Gwen Adams, as well as Stephanie, Director of Survivor Care, and Donna, Program Director again with Priceless Ministries. Gwen, thank you so much for joining us here today on Living Well. Why don't you just take a minute to each of you ladies just introduce yourself and let our audience get to know you.
Again, I'm Gwen Adams, and I've spent 23 years working in women's ministry at a local church here in town, Change Point. And about 4 years ago, our women's group just was really praying about what it would look like to give back to the women in our city and state. And as we began to look at what that might look like, Priceless was born through a series of events that I won't get into right here, but we began walking with victims of sex trafficking and launching Priceless, which has been quite the ride. Yes.
I bet it has. And Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
I'm Stephanie Staveland, and I'm the Director of Survivor Care here with Priceless. I'm a social worker here in Anchorage, and I've been volunteering with Priceless for about a year and just came on staff, about a month ago.
Really?
So,
just a month ago. And how has it been starting out so far?
Oh, it's been amazing.
I bet. What an amazing organization to be a part of. Betty, do you have an initial question you want to...
Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good.
Gwen, can you go back and tell us exactly how Priceless got started? I know that you were involved with Governor Parnell, and you were on a board that he designed and he asked you to be a part of.
Yes, I was invited by Governor Parnell's organization to be on the task force for sex trafficking with the Attorney General and some other people from around the state, mostly involved in the legal aspects of that and legislation to look at what's going on in our state. How big is the problem with sex trafficking? We traveled around to some of the villages and just did a lot of interviews and asking questions, because this is one of those areas where there hasn't been data collected and probably one of the most underreported crimes in the state. And so we just really went on an investigative journey for about 9 months. And that was the darkest 9 months and turned me into a paranoid mother. My daughter would ask, can I go hang out at Diamond Mall? And I'm like, Diamond Mall? There's trafficking there. And had to really begin to allow God to break my heart for what was going on, but also be empowered and encouraged by Him to actually take on the fight without fear. When we launched Priceless, honestly, as you might imagine, besides being on the task force, I don't have a lot of experience in any of this. Nobody jumps up and down and is excited about stepping into a ministry like this. So we began the only way that we knew how, and that was just on our faces before God, just begging Him to show us what to do next. And besides providing some hygiene bags to the FBI, which they use to make those initial steps towards trust with victims coming out of trafficking, that was the only other thing that we did besides pray. And we started out by saying we're going to have a weekly prayer meeting, and we're just going to invite people here to the office and just pray. And I think we had maybe 8 show up the first time, maybe 3 show up the second time, and we thought what we're doing isn't working. So we started what we called the Revolt prayer movement, it's called Revolt, an abolitionist prayer movement, which really was a way to engage people in prayer where they didn't have to leave their homes and come to another function at a building. So we basically asked people to give us their phone information, and we send out a weekly text on Wednesdays that goes out on noon, and we just ask people to stand together in solidarity and pray from 12 noon on Wednesdays to 12:15, and the text kind of guides how the prayer conversation will go. And Revolt has about 800 members to it now that are praying on Wednesdays for our survivors and praying for law enforcement, maybe a current case that's coming up, or any number of different things. And it was really cool to see prayer groups. Even at the BP building, they allowed several people that were joined in the revolt thing there to gather in the boardroom on Wednesdays. And there's a large group that continues to do that to this day. But watching groups pop up all over town that were using those 15 minutes to really pray about this issue. So I probably got even a little bit apologetic about the fact that that's really all we did. And people would say, oh, what's happening with Priceless? Are we rescuing anybody? No, all we do is pray. That's what I would say. And we launched the Revolt prayer movement. I'll never forget. It was September. And we launched that prayer movement, and 9 months later, I got a call. I was actually on vacation. I'm down in Seattle, and stepped out of a restaurant to take this call from the state troopers up here in Alaska. And they said, are you ready to engage in walking with victims as we arrest the pimps? We really need an organization to work with us. And I got back, we met face to face, and I said to him, I think we're ready. I had no idea what I was saying. I think that God is calling us into, but I knew that we were supposed to say yes when he told me this. He goes, I can't explain it, but I think the sun, moon, and stars has lined up because we've been tracking this case for 9 months. We started in September, and it is currently, we believe, the biggest sex trafficking bust in the nation. And I said, oh, I know the answer to this. It wasn't the fact that the sun, moon, and stars lined up. It's the fact that you have 800 people praying for you and praying that this crime would be turned around in our state. And so I knew that God had really used that prayer movement, and we were supposed to say yes. So I just basically told him, I said, here's what I have. I don't have a lot of money, not even a lot of resources, but I have a whole lot of crazy church ladies, and we're willing to do what needs to be done.
That is an amazing story, an amazing answer to prayer. I want to ask you about Revolt. Can ladies still get involved with this? Not only ladies, but men too. Is that correct?
Yes, you can go on our website, and that information will be provided. And there's a button or a tab that says Revolt, and you can sign up right there.
And what is your website?
PricelessAlaska.com.
And they can sign up today?
You can get on there and sign up right through the web. It'll take you to a link, and you can sign up. We do charge a small fee for it because the tech service costs us. So, and the way we've kind of set up Revolt is for every person that jumps on there and pays the $10 one-time fee to be a part of the Revolt text, it pays for us to allow to scholarship somebody else in there. So every time someone gives that $10, it allows us to sign up 2 more people.
Wow. While we're talking about that, Gwen or Stephanie, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about the needs that you have for volunteers at this time, as well as what is expected of a volunteer in the organization?
Well, Priceless is nothing without our mentor team. And that's what separates us from every other social service that would engage with this population. You can provide housing, clothing, food, all those things which are so necessary, but without that relational component, you're not going to see life change. You're not going to see sustainability and a movement towards a whole new life. And that's been the overwhelming beauty and power of Priceless, is connecting ordinary church ladies. I always make the joke that we're redefining who the church lady is. Yes, the church lady can engage in combating sex trafficking, working with law enforcement, and changing the culture in a state. Yes, she can. And so we provide some training around that, and we partner up every 2 mentors with 1 survivor. We always work in teams, and these women begin to take that journey with the women, basically helping them to connect to all the services they need. So they take them to the doctor, help them fill out paperwork, which is a huge part of what mentors do, but mostly just come alongside them and be a friend. And I always joke, people say, well, I just don't even know what I would say. I'm going to get in a room with this girl for the first time, and I can't relate to her past. My story doesn't look like that at all. What do you even say? I always say, well, all I do is usually just sit there and cry. So you're hearing a story that's so mind-boggling. I don't even have a bucket to put the stuff in. And I just sit there and start weeping and reach across the table, maybe grab a hand and just say, I'm so sorry. And what we began to see is so often the tears are the first time that the pain in this woman's life has been validated. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget sitting with one woman, and I couldn't help it. I just, she's telling this horrific story about being kicked out and homeless at age 13, sleeping in a building downtown Anchorage, being raped at the transit center while the security guards watched, and eventually finding a way out by being lured into work at a massage parlor, which she actually believed was a massage, like real massage parlor. And what happened that night in the massage parlor afforded her a night in a hotel and a bed to sleep in and a meal, which was a pretty powerful trade-off when you're sleeping outside on the ground or in an abandoned building. And so that began a pretty horrific 13-year journey being trafficked. And as she's unfolding the story and just telling, I just started to cry. And she stopped and she looked at me as I'm just a blubbering mess, and she said, as I'm saying this out loud and I'm seeing your face cry, I'm realizing what happened to me is pretty bad, isn't it? Never even dawned on her the level of horrific circumstances that had even unfolded in her life until she saw a crying face in front of her.
I just need a minute to digest all of that. How about you, Betty?
Yes.
And as I think through, so what I hear you saying is the biggest need that you guys have is for mentors to step up to the plate.
Yes.
And I will just say, you mentioned the I Mentor training, and Betty and I both are going down that endeavor of taking that training. And I'll just say the detail that you guys provide, even just after one session that I've been to, of how that is played out and the training that you provide behind that. So I just don't want anybody who's thinking about, they have the heart to get involved in this, but just don't know all the ins and outs of how to do that. You guys certainly provide the tools and the education behind that. So, but I do want to ask you, is that training going to be offered again? I know it's currently going on. Tell us a little bit about what the calendar looks like for that training being offered.
We hope to offer the training twice a year, each semester. So it's a 9-week training, and it won't be offered again now till the fall. And then for ongoing support for our mentors, there will be a monthly additional training. All of the trainings being videotaped, so we have the ability on case by case if we needed to make up sessions or rush somebody through training. Of course, we have the ability to do that. But we would prefer that people signed up during the regular training seasons.
Excellent. And you guys also offer both a morning and an evening training session. Is that typical as you guys? Okay.
Yes, Monday night and Wednesday mornings, and both sessions would include childcare.
So, Gwen, how can women find out more information about your mentor training?
Again, the best place to get any information about Priceless is on our website, pricelessalaska.com. Again, it's just Priceless typed out and .com, and all the information you would need would be on that site.
Moving from that, Stephanie, if you could just take a minute and tell us a little bit more about your role at Priceless and how that mentor placement takes place in the process behind that.
Yeah, so we definitely don't just throw you into, meeting with two women and building a friendship with them. So what our process kind of looks like is you'll complete the 9-week mentor training. From my end of it, we have a great partnership with law enforcement. We work with the FBI, APD, and the state troopers. So how women come to us is they will send me a text message with a name and a number of a gal that they've talked to about Priceless, who has express some desire to leave the life and just get a lot of support and help in doing that. So I will shoot them a text message just introducing myself, talking about Priceless, offering them an opportunity to come in and do intake with us. I will then meet with the women and do an intake with them. So that is just gathering some information about them, who they are, what are some of their dreams and their hopes, what do they want to do with their life. And then we talk about the mentorship program. So each woman knows that they are getting paired with 2 women and developing a friendship with them. We go over that. And once we get to know the women a little bit, then we'll pair them with a mentor team. And this is where I will pass the woman's information on to a mentor team. We will get together and have kind of a joint visit first. So it'll be me and the woman and the mentor team, do a little, icebreaker, if you will, and get to know them. And then the mentors will engage with them. So my role with them is to support the mentors, support the women, and making their dreams come true, looking for resources in the community, hooking them up to those resources, being there to support the mentors. They may have a lot of questions about the stories that they hear, so that's why we have the monthly mentor trainings after the 9-week training to really offer them some support, some time to debrief with each other and as a group.
Mm-hmm. How much information, and maybe you can or can't answer this question, but how much information gets passed off to you guys before the girl goes through intake, and how does that information apply to how you move forward?
Well, that kind of depends on a case-to-case basis. We at least get their name and number. Sometimes we get a little bit of background information regarding the case that they are involved in. Law enforcement's great about giving us any safety information that we may need to know if they're actively involved with a trafficker, if there's been an arrest made. So law enforcement really provides us with the information we need to know to keep us safe. And then we will meet them, whether it's in a public location or down at Change Point in our offices. That will kind of just depend on the girl and where she's at. We never meet alone. We always meet with 2 people and in a public location for their safety and for ours.
Sure. Gwen or Stephanie, have either one of you ever felt like your safety has been threatened being involved in this ministry?
Well, I have raised 4 teenagers, and I felt like my safety was threatened a lot more often doing that than with engaging in Priceless.
Huh?
So here's the deal. If God calls you into something, that is the safest place you can be. Of course, we are vigilant and careful and take every precaution we can around safety, but no, it's not perfectly safe, but neither is anything, right? But I figure I'm much safer doing this because this is where God's called me and He wants me than I would be sitting on my couch watching television.
Yeah. So speaking of those teenagers, how do those teenagers and your husband feel about your role in this organization?
I have 2 daughters that are going through the mentor training right now. One of my daughters is a hairdresser here in town, and she has really enjoyed the occasions that she's had to meet with our clients and make them feel beautiful and do their hair so often. We always really work hard with the gals when they're getting ready for a job interview to make sure they have a nice new outfit and their hair's done and those kind of things. So they've and my other daughter too is a esthetician here in town, and so I know, lucky me as a mom, but she has had the opportunity to just really pamper a couple of our gals too by doing facials. So 2 of my kids are actively engaged in the ministry. My husband's response to all this is he's just thrilled. He's gone on visits with me, loves that I'm doing what I'm called to do, but he would prefer that I carried a gun.
Sounds like a typical husband.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gwen or Stephanie, and listening to the stories from the girls, it has to be heartbreaking. Many times, we naturally want to try and fix everything, and we can't. We're just impossible for us to do this. So what keeps you going back day after day after day?
Well, for me, this is truly what God has called me to do. He's just instilled such a passion for these women in me, and it's the hope that He gives me for these women, and it's the small moments of laughter and the small successes that these women have, to just sit with a woman and see her be able to laugh with you, or celebrate a new job, or the decision to walk away from a dangerous situation and really reclaim her life. That's what keeps me coming back.
And I think for me, like I said earlier, spending 23 years in women's ministry, I remember sitting on vacation with my husband, and he started the conversation by just saying, sometimes don't you wish that you could really have that front row seat to life change on a continual basis? Don't you wish that the ministry that you engaged in was that active and just seeing the gospel come to life? And I remember thinking about that. I said, yeah, because honestly, as much as I loved my work in women's ministry, a lot of it was party planning, teaching Bible study. And not that there weren't really great life change moments all through that, because there really were. There was deep value in all of that. But what's radically changed my life is sitting in front of a woman and watching the power of the risen Jesus come to life in the most broken place that I don't even have the faith to believe it could happen. My faith is growing by leaps and bounds because I've seen that power. I've seen just how far the cross can go. So for me, that becomes, for lack of a better word, addictive. There's nothing as beautiful as that.
So as you mentioned that, Gwen, I want you to share with us, how do you define a success story within this ministry? Because I know that your guys' definition of that could be very different from what somebody else might think it would be. So tell us a little bit about that.
One of the phrases we use in the office all the time is redefine success, and definitely redefine normal. For me, success, I'll give an example of a girl that we're walking with who has had numerous suicide attempts. Her story is the worst I've ever heard. It's caused me many sleepless nights and some nightmares just listening to her story and having to even process that story with a counselor. And sitting with her and watching her, first and foremost, surrender her life to Christ, that's a huge success. But I don't know if the mental disabilities that she has, the issues that are going on in her life, I don't know that the suicide attempts are going to stop. But I know when she dies, she gets to be with her Savior. I know that. That's a huge success. I don't know what normal's going to look like for her, and I could carry that through with every girl. I don't know what it looks like, but when a girl calls me and says, "Thank you for getting me into this apartment," that's the first night that I slept behind a deadbolt where I knew no one could come through the door. Success, right? So it's different for everyone, but we redefine success, and if God grants me a 20-minute car ride with a girl, I take that 20 minutes and use it for His glory. I don't have expectations that I'll get another 20 minutes, right? And what does it look like to just be the living, breathing, incarnate Jesus Christ in those 20 minutes? Take what we get.
So as we kind of bring this portion of the program to a close, and I think we're going to move on, Betty, to have a part 2 as well next week. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. But as we wrap up things here, since this is a ministry and your guys' ultimate goal is to bring life change through bringing the gospel, have you noticed or realized kind of the best timing of placing that truth as you walk alongside these girls or as you mentor the mentors in how they do that?
Well, we spend a lot of time with our mentors. The mentor training, obviously, we do safety training with the FBI and all the, sex trafficking 101, all that kind of stuff. But what we focus on with our mentors is just really heart care for them and developing discipling relationships with them where they begin to understand their own identity. Because here's the thing, Jesus Christ is always speaking to His children. He speaks. We just don't always listen. And the gospel will be presented when He tells our mentors to present it. We trust that. We trust that He's going to lead. And sometimes it's met with open arms, and sometimes it's not. Although we are a ministry and we don't believe real life change can happen without Jesus Christ, if our women respond or don't, that doesn't change our movement towards them and our engagement with them. That's completely, we're responsible to share the good news. God is responsible for the outcome.
Anything, Dad? Okay, ladies. Well, we certainly want to thank you so much for joining us here today. Donna, thank you for your support and just being here as well. We are going to have a part 2, so we hope that you guys will come back and join us again next week. There's just so much to cover on a topic that's just not discussed enough, so it's difficult to fit everything in that we want to ask you guys in one session. So we appreciate you coming back. You can join us here every Wednesday on Living Well at KATB 89.3 right here in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer, as well as you can listen to us online at katb.org. Thank you for joining us on Living Well.